Hello everyone, it's Miss Hanley, and we're going to talk today about polynomials. We worked with monomials, and now we want to introduce what we can do with polynomials. So we have to break them down first, and then we'll begin discussing how to add and subtract them. Now, polynomial, as you might remember, the prefix poly means many. And so before we worked with monomials, which was one term. We worked with, and now we're going to be working with polynomials, which will be many terms. And there are a few other specific names that will help us out, but those are the most basic for right now. So the first thing we want to talk about is what is a polynomial. All right, so if it has many terms, it's all made up of monomials. So for example, 3x squared plus 2x minus 1, that would be considered a polynomial. So then we want to talk about the vocabulary that goes along with this, and there's a lot of vocab. The first new word for us is the word degree, and degree just means the largest power. So go ahead and fill this in with me, the largest power that's found in the polynomial. So in the example that I just created, our degree would be 2, because that's the highest power that I see. For the next piece, we want to talk about standard form. The polynomial that I created was in standard form, and that's because we arranged the order from greatest to least. Okay? So we always want the powers to be going from highest to lowest. So I start with my exponent of 2, and then the x just has an exponent of 1, and the constant has a power of 0, degree of 0. So the whole entire polynomial that has a degree of 2 is listed from least to greatest in order of degree. Alright, the pieces of the polynomial, and we've been throwing this word out a little bit here, are the terms. So each piece that I have that's separated with addition or subtraction is considered a term. So this polynomial would have 3 terms because you have 2 either plus or minus signs, and that separates your pieces, your monomials. So term is parts of an expression that are added or subtracted together. And I don't have enough room to write subtracted, but you can go ahead and do that. Alright, so now we're cruising right along. If your polynomial is in standard form, you have what's called a lead coefficient. And so the leading coefficient, when you get into Algebra 2, that will actually tell you a lot about how to graph your polynomial, what its arrows on the ends are doing, but right now we just need to be able to identify it. So when you're talking about a lead coefficient, it's the number in front, remember coefficient is the number in front, of the polynomial with the highest degree, or the term with the highest degree. So the coefficient in our situation, it's going to be the coefficient of the first term in a polynomial that's in standard form. So since ours is in standard form, 3 is our lead coefficient, okay? And that would be because it's right in front of x squared, and 2 is the highest power. Alright, so next we want to talk about a constant, and you guys have heard this word before. A constant is just a number, so absolutely no variables. So the term that has no variables, only a number. So 1 in our case would be a constant. 3 is part of 3x squared and 2 is part of 2x. So because there are variables there, that's not considered a constant. Alright, and then we get down to some terminology. So in order to sort of dissect this, let's look at the prefixes. First we have a monomial. Well, mono, we know, means one. So that's a polynomial that only has one term. A binomial, prefix bi, means two. So it's a polynomial that has two terms. A trinomial, just like a triangle, has three terms. So the polynomial we created is actually a trinomial because it has 1, 2, 3 terms. And then a polynomial is just a general term that is used for anything that has many terms. And you can refer to a trinomial as a polynomial or a binomial, but usually we want to be more specific. So if you know it's a binomial, monomial, or trinomial, try and use those words. All right? So let's do some practice here. All right. So I'm going to go down through the list, and we want to pick out what the degree, leading coefficient, constant are all going to be. We want to write it in standard form, and we want to decide if it's a monomial, binomial, or trinomial. So my advice to you would be to always start by putting the polynomials into standard form. Just makes it easier when you're looking for a degree if you have your polynomial in standard form. So this first one, we want to arrange, if we're going to go in standard form, from the highest power to the lowest power, or to the constant. Well, the highest power I see is x cubed. Right? So I'm going to start with that term, 2x cubed. Sometimes it helps me to cross them out after I use them. The next highest degree would be x, or negative x. And remember that that negative sign is staying with the x, so you always take the sign that's in front. So we have 2x cubed minus x, and then the last piece would be 4. And since there's no sign in front of the 4, we assume it to be positive. All right. So now it's simple for me to see the degree. The degree is my highest power, which is the 3. And the leading coefficient is the number in front of that. So that here would be a 2. All right. Your constant is just any term that has no variable, that has a number. So that's just a number, sorry. So our constant would be 4. And then we look at how many terms we have, and we would have 1, 2, 3 terms, so this is a trinomial. All right. So next, let's look at the second one. We have 4x cubed minus 3x to the 6th plus 2 plus x squared. So if we're going to arrange this in standard form, I'm starting with my first term with the highest power, so negative 3x to the 6th. It really doesn't matter what the coefficients are, it just matters the powers, so the exponents. Okay. So after that we would put 4x to the 3rd, because that's the next highest power, and then x squared, and then plus 2. So that's my polynomial in standard form. Now my degree is the highest power, so here it is a 6. Your lead coefficient is the number in front of that, so negative 3. The constant is the one on the end with no variable, so that would be a 2. And I have 4 parts, since we don't have a specific name for 4 pieces, 4 terms, that would be a polynomial. Always be careful too, if you can combine any like terms, you want to do that before you decide whether it's a polynomial or a monomial, binomial, or trinomial. Okay? Alright, next we're getting a little simple here. So you have 3 minus 5x. Now, you're used to seeing, when you're dealing with linear equations, you're used to seeing, 5x plus 3 or something along those lines. We're still thinking that way when we do polynomials. So the highest degree is going to be that 1. 5x just has a power of 1, so that's first, and also take the sign in front. So negative 5x. The 3 that's out front is positive, so we're going to have a plus 3. Alright, so now I have my degree, which we just said was a 1. Even though it's not written there, it's assumed to be a 1. And then my lead coefficient is going to be negative 5. My constant is 3. It's all by itself out here. And this would be a binomial. Alright, so I want you guys to try filling in the rest and then check with your teacher to see if you got them correct.